Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan Ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. Do you have any tips for how I can get a better night's sleep? It's so beautiful because with the questions that come in Satsang, I always say there's no such thing as a wrong question. Because sometimes people feel shy, they worry, maybe my question's silly, maybe it's stupid, maybe it's wrong. And I always emphasize there's no such thing as a wrong question. As long as it's something that is deeply important to you in your life. That satsang's not a time about philosophical debates. It's not a time for being in our heads and intellectual questions of what's the semantic difference between this word and that word. But it's a time of diving deep into truth so that we can live free from suffering, free from ignorance. And yet, occasionally, there are questions that arise that aren't exactly on that normal level that we tend to talk on, but nonetheless actually are really important because we are spiritual beings having a human experience in human bodies, and those bodies are the mediums that we use for our spiritual experience. If I couldn't sit and close my eyes and meditate, I wouldn't have the experiences that I have in meditation. If my back were killing me in such a way that whether I sat on the ground, on a chair, on a couch, that sitting in any way caused me so much pain, well, it would be really hard to ignore that pain or to be free of that pain enough that I was able to have the types of spiritual experiences that I have sitting in meditation. In the same way, when our physical body is sick, many of us have discovered that it's a lot easier to drag a healthy body out of bed early in the morning to meditate than it is to drag a sick body out of bed early in the morning to meditate. That there's a pull of the sick body that says, and it's human, it's part of the human experience. No, it doesn't want to cook food, and no, it doesn't want to get up and meditate. It just wants to lie in bed. And so this is where all of the spiritual traditions emphasize care for the body in different ways. And in our Sanatan Dharma, I mean, we've got a whole emphasis from a practice of yoga, practice of pranayama, science of Ayurveda. It's all about keeping the physical body, the energetic body as it flows through the physical body, healthy, so that we have the very best chance to be able to use this body as a medium for awakening. In the same way, if we're not sleeping, so this was all a build-up to the answer to the question of, do you have any tips on how I can get a better night's sleep? Well, when you wake up from not having a good night's sleep, it's not simply a matter of feeling a little groggy or a little cranky. There's actually a lot of science. I've got a science background, which probably many of you know, but some may not know. And I love science. And I love the way that our brains and the science of the world, the physics, the biology, how all of that overlaps with spiritual teachings. So what we know now scientifically is that not sleeping is literally the equivalent of being drunk. Now, I forget the exact numbers and the exact glasses of alcohol, but there's lots of statistics around if you get less than a certain number of hours of sleep, or if you go more than a certain number of days, getting fewer than a certain number of hours of sleep, your cognitive abilities are literally just as bad as if you were drunk. The research came to play around things like truck drivers who are on the road for many days at a time and cause all kinds of accidents. And so the research was done proving that these exhausted truck drivers are actually just as dangerous to themselves and others as drunk drivers. But I take that research in a different way as well, which is, if we're going to follow a path of Jnana Yoga, a path of wisdom, if we are going to be introspecting, who am I? If we're looking for wisdom rather than ignorance, and we are so tired that we are essentially chemically drunk, it's a lot harder to grasp wisdom. It's also a lot harder to do any of the practices. If you haven't slept well and you go to sit for meditation, what happens? Oh yeah, you fall asleep. If you fall asleep, people will ask me sometimes, what do I do about the fact that I fall asleep in meditation? And the answer is always, get a better night's sleep the night before. You're falling asleep in meditation because your body's exhausted. So if we're not able to sleep, we're not going to be able to meditate well. We're not going to be able to do yoga well. The body just won't have the strength and the vitality that it needs. And cognitively, we're drunk, which makes our yearning for wisdom a much more challenging experience. So sleep is important, and tips to getting a better night's sleep. The main thing that keeps us from sleeping when our bodies are tired is the mind. We're stressed. We lie in bed and we're worried about what we have to do. We're making to-do lists. We're worried about what's going to happen tomorrow or next week. We're playing out all kinds of scenarios in our mind. or we are worried about that which has already happened. We're replaying conversations we had, thinking, oh my God, why did you say that? That was so stupid. What are those people going to think about you? Or, oh my God, how did you do that? Why did you do that? That was such a mistake. You're making such a mess of your life. These are the types of things that keep tired bodies awake at night. And so the best solution to that is a practice of meditation before you sleep. You know, we know that staring at your device, whether it's a handheld device, whether it's a TV or a computer, the literal blue light that it emits shuts off the brain's signals for sleep, that the blue light signals wake up. So we're getting it actually from the light of our devices. And of course, we're getting it from the stimulation of our devices because we're clicking here, watch now, watch now, watch now. And so our brains are getting overstimulated. We're angry, we're upset, we're triggered. I mean, that's what drives the algorithms of social media. We know that now. So get off your device. Get off your device at least an hour before you sleep. Spend that time meditating, reading. Read a book. You know those things with paper and they're bound, got covers. The statistics around how many people read books these days is heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. Again, I can't remember the exact statistics, but it's something like 70% of people have not read a book this year. Yeah, I mean, just heartbreaking statistics. Read a book. Read a book that's inspiring. Read a book that brings you joy. Read a book that gives you a deep dive into another culture, another time. It doesn't have to be hardcore spiritual teachings. It could be a novel. Takes you into some other beautiful experience, awareness, time, whatever it may be. But something that is bringing you into that space of where you want to be before you go to sleep. Don't read murder mysteries. Don't read spy novels. Read things that are putting you into the mindset of where you want your mind to be. That's the most powerful thing. And then, of course, there's all the very simple things that we know, but they bear repeating just in terms of, for example, don't have a heavy meal late at night. It's awful for your digestion. Eat early. Lay off the caffeine. I mean, all the same stuff that Google could tell you. But it's worth remembering because when things seem so simple, we tend to ignore them. We tend to go out and buy $100 contraptions that are going to, put our brains into a certain wave state. We go out and we buy $1,000 mattresses that are going to, make us sleep better. I remember a few years ago, I was driving through Haridwar, which is, most of you know, a city quite near here. But I was driving from a very, very rural jungle area behind the city of Haridwar. And as I was driving through there was a man. It was just village India. You would have no idea that you were 5-7 kilometers from a city as big as Haridwar. And there was a man lying in front of his shop. He had a little shop. And in front of the shop, he had a little bed. And this must have been, noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 2. And the guy is lying on a bed on basically the edge of the road. And he's got his shop and then a little space in front of the shop and then the road. And he's essentially lying on the edge of the road, fast asleep. People are walking by, there's dogs, there's cars. He's fast asleep. 10 minutes later, we enter into the industrial area of Haridwar called Sidkul. And it could be the industrial area anywhere in the world. I mean, big buildings, it looks just like an industrial area, and it's factories and it's offices and buildings and people rushing across the street in their, suits and ties and office gear and briefcases and rushing. And I had this moment of realizing what's actually development, right? We consider this area developed and the early area undeveloped, or euphemistically developing. And yet, what kind of development have we created where everybody's rushing around and no one can sleep? This guy, undeveloped, has no trouble sleeping at all. He doesn't need a $1,000 mattress. He doesn't need a few $100 pair of headphones that change the brain waves he's having. He just lies down and he sleeps. And it really made me realize how very simple that which most of us suffer from is, how very simple the solutions are. But the solutions that we're being given are solutions that are so complex because they buy into the problem, right? Now, in order to sleep, I can't sleep because I've got these endless desires that are never fulfilled. And so I'm stressed because my desires aren't being fulfilled. But now, what am I being told in order to sleep? The answer is $1,000 mattress, $300 pair of, special headphones, this and that. Well, it just feeds into the whole problem. Now I can't sleep because I don't have the right mattress. Now I can't sleep because I'm too poor to buy the headphones. If we just went back to a bit of simplicity, end your day as close to when the sun goes down as you can. Rely on artificial light as infrequently and minimally as possible. Meditate. Read. Sleep early. The last great tip that goes along with this is get up early. What most of us do is when we can't go to sleep, let's say we decide, okay, I'm going to go to sleep early. 9:30, I'm in my bed. But of course, I'm wired. I've been on my phone until 30 seconds ago. My brain is wired. It's hours before I'm used to going to sleep. So I lie in bed, can't sleep. And so I take my alarm, which originally I had set for 5 in the morning because I'm going to get up early and meditate. But now when 9:30 becomes 10:30, becomes 11:30, becomes midnight, I realize, well, I need more than 5 hours of sleep, and so I turn off my alarm. Instead, leave the alarm set. Even if you end up with not enough sleep that night, get up anyway. Start your practice anyway. Because then that night, I guarantee you, at 9:30, you're going to be tired. But if you turn off the alarm every night because you're not able to fall asleep, and then you sleep until 8 in the morning, well, obviously you're not going to be able to go to sleep at 9:30 at night. So set an alarm for whatever time you want to get up in the morning, and then get up, regardless of when you went to sleep. And slowly, slowly, what you will find is your whole body realigns with the sun. And it's such a beautiful and healthy way to live. Then slowly, slowly, you don't even need the alarm, because your body is just attuned with the sun.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit rain.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me.
I am totally confused about what to do with my life. How do we find the true purpose of life? The dilemma for most of us is an overemphasis on the what, and not nearly enough emphasis on the how and the who. For just a moment, stop worrying about the what are you going to do. Shift your question. Who am I? When I don't know who I am, then I have no way of knowing what to do. Then I'm literally simply taking cues from what society, the culture, social media, influencers I follow, my friends, my family, what they say. In order to really know what to do, I have to know who I am. So begin with a question of who. Tell yourself, I'm not going to worry about the what for right now. I'm just going to worry about who. And in your meditation, in your contemplation, as you're walking, as you're driving, as you're cooking, as you're eating, as you're doing dishes, as you're doing whatever you do, just keep asking yourself, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? There's a beautiful practice of meditation called neti neti, which is not this, not that. I am not the clothes I wear. I'm not the skin beneath the clothes. I'm not the blood beneath the skin. I'm not the organs. You go through all of what you are not until there's really nothing left to name. I'm not my thoughts, clearly, because our thoughts are just chemical and electrical patterns of behavior in our brain. We can artificially induce thoughts, give people drugs, stimulate their brain in a certain way. They're going to think in a certain way. So if my thoughts are chemical and electrical, well, I'm not chemistry or electricity. They're not who I am. And slowly, 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 as you realize what you are not, that space of who you are, suddenly it just becomes apparent. So focus on who. Then focus on how. So whatever you are doing, you are cooking, you are cleaning, you are walking, you are waiting tables, you are filing, you are stuffing envelopes, you are designing a website, you are sweeping the floor. You are doing whatever you may be doing. How are you doing it? Are you doing it mindlessly? Is your mind saying, oh my God, I can't believe this is so stupid. I got stuck doing this. When I find my real purpose, then I won't be stuck doing these stupid things. Then someone else will do those things. Because clearly it's someone else's purpose to sweep the floor. Or, as you're doing those, are you doing them in the spirit of mindfulness, of awareness? Are you able to be fully aware of what it feels like to actually have warm, soapy water on your hands as you're doing the dishes? Are you able to feel what it feels like as your foot touches the ground when you walk? Are you able to be aware of the muscles in your arms as they rise up to put in a letter into an envelope? Are you able to be so aware of the micro flow of energy through you that what you're doing starts to become irrelevant because you are just so anchored in that awareness that one minute you're doing this, another moment you're doing something else, a third moment you're doing a third thing. But the what becomes irrelevant because the awareness is constant. And you're anchored not in, oh, this is boring. Oh, now this is fun. But you're anchored in simple awareness. Not judgment, but just awareness. So focus on who, then how. And when you've done both of those for a few months, I'm not talking years, I'm not talking lifetimes, just give yourself a few months of stopping to worry about what. Focus on who and how. And what I am very sure of is that in the stillness, in the spaciousness, in the openness, in the availability of you to the universe, that suddenly the what will make itself known. That suddenly what your Dharma is in this moment. And of course, we don't only have one Dharma in our lifetime. It's not a matter of finding that one thing, like finding that one soulmate. We have many different Dharmas, even at one time. You have a Dharma as a child to your parents. You have a Dharma as a parent to your children. You have a Dharma to do whatever your work is, regardless of whether you love it or hate it, but to do it sincerely. We have a Dharma to our society, our community, to Mother Earth. And then, of course, we've got our our individual dharmas of the moment. And they're not rocket science. They haven't been sent to us in some kind of uncrackable code. It's just that we're not quiet and still and open enough to hear them. So instead of driving yourself crazy with the what, focus on the who and the how, and let the rest just make itself known.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation.
So how do we combine spirituality in our normal lives, especially when we leave this heavenly place and go back? So the first and most powerful way, you can imagine this is a common question when people leave, the first and most important way is make sure that when you're here, you're really letting yourself be changed. Only then will it go home with you. If it's only as deep as a suntan, you'll lose it on the airplane home. Let that change within you go really deep. It's very easy to feel peaceful when you're away from the stresses and strains of your normal life. But you would get that lying on a beach drinking pina coladas also. There's something very different, deeper, more powerful, more transformative about being here than being on a beach sipping pina coladas. But you've got to make sure that that actual deep transformation happens. Not just, oh, I had this nice time away from the stress and strain of my normal life. And that's the work that you need to do while you're here, is really make sure that that transformation is happening inside you. And then when you go back, set up a series of things. There's a lot of different ways. Number one, reevaluate. And some of this you should do while you're here before you get back. It's good work for the plane also. Is really reevaluate how you spend your time. Some of it we have no control over. It's our jobs. We've got to put food on the table. But we've got a lot of time in our hands. And the thing you need to think about is, how are you spending it? What's your choice of ways to spend that time? Is it in alignment with your newly transformed self? And if not, then plan before you get back what you're going to do differently and write it down. Otherwise, you get back and you are in the throes of habits, back in the throes of Maya. Really make a very concrete plan. These are the activities I'm still going to do. These are the activities I'm not going to do. So my morning walk with my close friends, definitely still going to do that. Friday night at the bar, we can skip that. Really think about these things so that you know in advance what you're going into. And then figure out ways to bring your connection into your daily life. Things as simple as when you walk, what do most of us do? We're on our phones or talking on it. Or if it's longer, listening to some podcast or something. Well, can you take some time that you're just with yourself? So you're re-grounding, because these are what all of these practices need to do, is they need to reconnect you to the self who is here right now, who's having these experiences. You need to reconnect to her. So find opportunities during the day for just a few moments of silence. Before you eat, close your eyes. Have a few moments of deeply reconnecting. Before you drink water. And, you could choose different things. These are just things we tend to do a lot, so they're good opportunities. Just close your eyes, spend a few minutes reconnecting. Decide that when you're walking, you're just going to be with yourself, with your breath, reconnecting, or chanting a mantra. And recognize that this presence of the divine that you feel here exists everywhere. Look for it. Make it your daily practice to see whether you can actually see the divine in everyone. We know that the divine is in everyone. Can you see it? Just make it your daily practice. It won't be easy. That's okay. It's not about how much you succeed. It's not about what percentage of people you actually could see the divine in. It's about an intention. That instead of looking at them as physical beings, fat, thin, tall, short, white, black, brown, rather than that, can you actually look in everyone's eyes and see the divine in them? Or at least intend to. It'll change your entire way of moving through the world. You're checking out at the grocery store. Can you look in the eyes of the person checking you out and see the divine? Instead of thinking, oh my God, why is she so slow? Can you actually look? Look in her eyes, or his eyes, see the divine. And then keep coming back and recharging your batteries.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation.
I imagine that if I said to all of you, does anyone here have a habit that you would like to stop? That most of us would raise our hands. Or we could flip it around and say, does anyone have a positive habit that they would really like to implement in their lives, but haven't yet been able to really get it to become a habit? Anything ranging from a beautiful meditation practice to flossing your teeth, right? I mean, how many things are there that we would love to make an absolute, unquestionable part of our day, but things happen. And similarly with the bad habits that we'd like to be free of, this is really common. It's not something to feel ashamed of at all. Here are the keys. The way that our brain functions is actually very mechanical most of the time. The overwhelming majority of what happens in our brain happens automatically. Now, some of that is just which makes our body go. We're breathing, we're digesting, we're able to hold our bodies erect. But then there's a lot of the automatic things that have become automatic in our lives. So people bite their fingernails or crack their knuckles or twirl their hair, or, people have all kinds of habits that they're just unconscious of. It's not that they're always aware, oh, right now I'm biting my fingernail or I'm twirling my hair. It's become unconscious. Similarly, it happens to a lot of us emotionally. Maybe that bad habit is getting angry, yelling, having temper tantrums. Anybody out there, again, who's getting wet and who doesn't want to be getting wet, feel free to come in. We can always, if you're happy getting wet, no problem, but just to let you know that we'll always scoot in. There's no Hindi translation for there's no room. There's always room in India. So, yeah, I've never been in a place where no matter how packed it looks, you can't actually squeeze more people in. So sometimes those bad habits are emotional habits. We get angry. We don't want to, but we do. Before we even know what's happened, we are throwing a temper tantrum, or we're yelling. Maybe we're even hitting. The very first, most important thing to do is become conscious. Because all of these habits happen when we are unconscious. I can't stop biting my fingernails or twirling my hair if I'm not aware when I'm doing it. I have to first become aware. And similarly, in terms of the tone of my voice, terms of my action, if I'm aware while I'm doing it, fully aware, whether it's drinking alcohol, taking drugs, yelling, whatever the habit may be, as long as I'm unconsciously doing it on autopilot, I don't stand a chance. I have to bring in consciousness. And what that means is that in our lives, we have to practice being aware. It's one of the great gifts that meditation gives us, right? When we meditate, it sounds very simple. Be aware of your breath. You'd think, what's the big deal? Why is that so complex? Well, first of all, it's very hard to maintain for more than about 30 seconds at a time without the mind wandering. But as you develop the skill of being able to watch that breath without the mind wandering, of being in that mindful moment, it actually retrains your brain. That which we gain in meditation is not gone when we stand up from meditation. It stays with us. As it changes our brain, we change. So meditation teaches us to be aware, conscious. And that's the first step. The second step is, what a lot of people do is they make very big resolutions. So say I normally get up at 9 o'clock in the morning. Then I decide from tomorrow I'm going to get up at 4. It's unlikely. It's unlikely that that's going to work. Now, there are some people, and especially if you go into a meditation retreat where there's a bell and everybody's got to get up. But on your own, it's very difficult to drag a body out of bed that's used to getting up at 9 at 4. And the dilemma is actually very deep here, because if I make a commitment, I'm going to get up at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I don't, I go back to sleep, then what happens is my whole sense of self. So if I make a commitment and then I don't do it, well, I've lost the opportunity to meditate, to have a new good habit. But something actually much more detrimental has also happened, which is I've taught myself I am not someone who does what I say I'm going to do. And that identification is actually much more harmful for me than not meditating for a day. Because now, the moment that I make any kind of resolution, my mind says, yeah, but I don't do them. Yeah, I keep committing, but I don't do it. I keep saying I'm going to stop, but I don't. And suddenly I become, in my own self-identification, someone who doesn't do what I commit to doing. And so whether it's stopping a habit or starting a habit, either way, bite off a chunk that you can chew. It may not be easy. Challenge yourself. We're all up to the challenge. But bite off a chunk that's manageable. You get up at 9 every day? Okay, start setting the alarm at 8. Don't try to go from 9 to 4. Set it at 8. Do that for a few weeks or a month. Then set it for 7. Do that for another few weeks or month. Then slowly. And the benefit of that is that suddenly in your mind you become someone who does what you commit to doing. If you are used to eating dessert with every single meal, you're used to having snacks, candy as snacks and dessert as every meal, and suddenly you say no more sugar. Well, again, it's really unlikely that unless a doctor has said you've got such bad diabetes you're going to die, that you're actually going to follow it. Instead, Just stop having dessert with dinner. Keep doing everything else the same. Stop your dessert with dinner. Do that for a few weeks. Then stop your lunch dessert. Do that for another few weeks or a month. Then stop the mid-afternoon candy bar. Do that another few weeks or a month. Slowly, slowly, such that at the end of several months, now you don't even need sugar in your tea. But you didn't do it all at once. So that's a really important part. And one good way of making sure that you follow up is telling people you're going to do it. There's a very powerful psychological component about a publicly made resolution. I'm much more likely to cheat on my diet if no one knows I'm on a diet. I'm much more likely to keep smoking even though I vowed to quit if no one knows I vowed to quit. But if I've publicly stated, as of tomorrow, I am not smoking, well, the sheer sense of my own self-respect, right? I don't want people to say, you're the loser who couldn't do what you said. So due to my own self-respect, I'm much more likely to keep it. So state your intentions publicly. And not everything necessarily deserves to be on social media. Sometimes things are private. But be sure that you tell at least a few people. People whose opinion of you respect and matter. Somebody who you really respect, tell them, I've made a decision. This is what I'm going to do. And every day, I'm going to send you a note. Sometimes people come into Satsang and they vow, I'm going to start meditating. Or I'm going to stop shouting at people or, any kind of bad habit. And I always say, message me every day. Just send me a message every day. Every day you meditate, message me. Every day you made it through the day not shouting at someone, message me. Because it gives them that sense that someone's watching and paying attention. So those are some tips to do it. But what we know about the brain, as I began, is it functions mostly in many ways like an autopilot machine, which means that the first few weeks or months are going to be much more difficult. Once it becomes a habit, like I remember when I gave up sugar. I was never a huge sugar eater, but I had sugar in my tea, I had sugar in my milk. And it's not that I never touch it, but I've pretty much stopped eating it. And in the beginning, it was difficult. But then as the years have gone by, it's become so much just a part of who I am that, there could be a bowl of M&Ms sitting on my coffee table where people come and sit for weeks, and it just never would even occur to me to eat one. But it takes a while for the whole chemistry of the body to recalibrate and not keep craving things. So give yourself some time. And if your habit is not something that's chemically related, but just action related, know that the more times you do an action, the more likely you are to do an action. It's a sanskara, it's an impression. The more times I throw a temper tantrum, the more likely I am to throw a temper tantrum. The more times I smoke a cigarette after a meal, the more likely I am to smoke a cigarette after a meal. It's the way that the brain works. But similarly, the more times I floss my teeth before I go to sleep, the more likely I am to floss my teeth before I go to sleep. It becomes a habit. But you've got to give yourself those weeks. There's arguments among different camps. I've heard 14 days, I've heard 21 days, I've heard 28 days. But everyone agrees it's a matter of a couple of weeks. It's not a matter of years. And it just rewires our habits. So just make a commitment. Bite off a chewable chunk. Tell people you're going to do it. And then do it. Not just because of the habit, but so that when you think about yourself, you know, I'm someone who does what I say. I'm someone who follows through. I'm someone who keeps my commitments. And not, oh yeah, never do anything I say I'm going to do. For your own self-esteem and self-worth, follow through.
This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week, and I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on OMTimes Radio.